Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe could lose his pension if Attorney General Jeff Sessions agrees with an internal FBI review and fires Mr. McCabe for, quote, lack of candor during an internal review of the Hillary email investigation. For more, we turn to Alan Dershowitz, Harvard law professor and author of The Case Against BDS, Why Singling Out Israel for Boycott is Anti-Semitic and Anti-Peace. Counselor, good to see you. The phrase lack of candor, a lot of people say, why not call a spade a spade? They're talking about him lying to internal investigators about the Hillary investigation. Should he be fired for that?
No, I think they should investigate him, and perhaps he can be fired after it's established by due process. But this sounds awfully petty. On the eve of his resignation, to take away his pension after he has spent years and years doing great service for the United States, I think you have to prove that case by at least a heavy preponderance or clear and convincing evidence. And I haven't seen the case made that he is justifiably being fired just weeks before he intends to resign to take his pension away.
Well, the internal investigation, I don't know how extensive it was, but it wasn't like there was a vendetta against him. I mean, it does seem that they had a lot of evidence that indicated that he was not being frank with them about his role in the Hillary investigation. Shouldn't we trust the internal investigation?
Not until I see the evidence. I never trust investigators until I see the evidence. And what does lack of candor mean? Are they saying he lied directly? Are they saying he wasn't forthcoming? I think we have to know a lot more before we can take away a man's pension.
Now, it's interesting. I got to move you along because we don't have a lot of time. But General Flynn, Michael Flynn, was pled guilty to lying to investigators. A lot of people say, hey, look, General Flynn did no worse than what Mr. McCabe did, and he lost everything. Is that a fair comparison?
No, he shouldn't have pleaded guilty if he wasn't guilty. He obviously pleaded guilty. That ends the matter. But I haven't heard anything about McCabe acknowledging or admitting anything. Absent an admission, I think you need proof by a heavy burden.
The interesting thing, again, forgive me, but the interesting thing about this is that now we have evidence that Peter Strzok, who worked at the FBI, was the lead agent of the FBI and became the lead agent for Mr. Mueller in that investigation, apparently knew the judge that was looking at General Flynn and what he was doing. There may have been some improper relationship between that judge and people that were biased against General Flynn.
Look, I think Strzok certainly should be fired if the evidence demonstrates that he had improper contact with the judge, that he didn't recuse himself after knowing that he had sent the messages that he had sent. His case for firing seems a lot stronger. But again, I would want to see the evidence. I want to see a conclusion reached. But it sounds to me like the case for firing Strzok is much, much stronger than the case for firing McCabe. But again, due process is essential before you take away a person's job that he's worked for years.
One final quick question. We're getting more words now of two of the witnesses that Mr. Mueller's put up before the grand jury. One is Sam Nunberg, who we saw in front of the television cameras certainly appearing intoxicated and admitting so. Another witness is George Nader, who we find out now is a convicted pedophile, served a year in prison for that. If these are the best witnesses Mr. Mueller can put before a grand jury, what does that say about the investigation? Quickly.
Not sound like it's a very powerful case if you have witnesses like that. They're hoping for guilty pleas, because if the case goes to trial, particularly if it goes to trial in a fair district where a person can get a fair trial, not where the overwhelming number of jurors will have voted for the Democrats, I think then you would see that there would not be convictions based on the lack of credibility of witnesses such as the two you've just described. But, prosecutors have this enormous power to get people to plead guilty, even based on the weakest of cases, because they just don't want to take a chance of going through the roulette wheel, being found guilty, and then getting 10 times the sentence they would have gotten if they had pleaded guilty. That's what's wrong with our criminal justice system today. It disencourages people from going to trial and proving their innocence.
Yeah. Andrew Napolitano would agree with you on that. Counselor, thank you very much. Good stuff. I appreciate it.